All right. Great to see everyone. Great to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for the opportunity.
So I think as you've heard throughout the day, we are in the midst of a tech revolution. And I use that word intentionally. It's not an evolution. This is truly a revolution. And we are seeing in real time the rules of technology being rewritten. In that environment, of course, security plays a role as well. And maybe more so today than ever before, because security can't really just be a guardrail. We have to have our hand on the wheel with our technology partners. And within Walmart, of course, we're hardwired to embrace change. And this may be one of the more significant changes I've seen in my career. And for those of you that interact with information security, which I assume is probably just about everyone here, we know that information security can feel like a friction point, but we really don't want to be the department of no. We want to partner and enable. So let's welcome Swapna, and Swapna, let's dive right into it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
So as the role of security has moved further upstream, how are you helping your partners embed security as a design principle, not necessarily like a post-launch patch, but how do you see that shift unlocking new pathways for innovation at scale?
Absolutely. So first of all, a pleasure to be with all of you, and thank you, Jerry, for the opportunity. You mentioned security as being a guardrail. I'd prefer, especially in the age of revolution, as you say, I'd prefer security to be like a steering wheel in gears, something that is fundamental as a design principle. And when we talk about design, we have to start well. Foundationally, you have to ensure that when you use a new technology, it has to start with security in mind from day one. So whether it is using an application, a new technology, whether it's building an application or new technology, you start with security in mind. Our advice and conversations with customers have been a platform approach rather than having 37 different products in your environment. Right. And the reason I'll say it's fundamental is even in the industry which is B2C, to understand your consumer, you create what we call a data lake, right, where you bring in the intelligence of the customer. We're telling you the same thing. In an enterprise, understand your enterprise by bringing all the security data into one place, and then using that to enable application building, application usage, and processes.
And I would assume that's an AI use case in and of itself.
Absolutely. You have got to use AI to secure AI.
That's right. That's right. So given that much of what creates value within the technology world, we also see that it tends to create risk in a number of cases. So how are you advising partners and their business leaders on approaching risk tolerance?
Yes, it's a great question, because if you look at the fundamentals of security, and those of you who learn security or study security from scratch, the first thing to understand about an enterprise is define your risk appetite. How much can you take on? And then from there, grow it. Now, in this new world where the barrier to perpetrate crime has become, cybercrime, I would say, has become extremely low, it's so important to define risk and redefine it in today's age. And I want to talk about how the sophistication of these attacks have changed, because that leads back into what kind of risk an enterprise can take. This was sheer coincidence, but a couple of days ago, we had AI-powered ransomware shared in the media called Prompt Lock, right? And this ransomware, once deployed on a server, actually generates Lua scripts, but not to get into why is that important? Because it can run on Windows, Linux, as well as macOS. And it can morph. So the world of okay, I saw something statically, it's bad, let me deal with it, is gone.
Right.
So the risk tolerance now, the whole definition of risk tolerance has changed. So one has got to go back again to ensuring that security becomes a basic design principle, and ensuring that security becomes an enabler. So the day you start using something or the day you start building something, bring security as an integral part of that process.
I fully agree. And in conversations with my team, I often will suggest repetitively that the secure path should be the easiest. We want to make it easy to be secure. We don't want that to be an impediment to our technology partners or to our business or to our goals and objectives. So if security is at the table from the onset, then to your point, it tends to be baked in. And back to your point around the barrier to entry, I'm often asked in my role what causes me concern or worry, and there's a lot of things. I won't bore you with all of them. But in this space in particular, that has been one of my moments of realization, is that the barrier to entry for threat actors is reduced.
Yes.
Whereas historically we would see threat actors would have to have some level of technical skill. Not as much the case any longer. And that is going to require a mindset shift, I think, on all of us. And the thing that I would implore to everyone attending this session is, you shouldn't think necessarily that when it comes to security that, oh, that's Jerry and his team's responsibility, or Swapna and her team's responsibility to worry about. It's really incumbent upon all of us. And especially in the modern technology environment, it has to be part of the conversation. So if security is not in the room, I would challenge all of you to be willing to be the person that picks up that mantle and says, well, what about, or have we considered?
Yes, yes. I'd like to add on to that, Jerry, if you will. That mindset will take some time. It will be a journey. So for every person who's developing code today, and I don't know how many of you are using vibe coding now, but someone like me can also start coding now. That's the barrier of entry conversation. How intrinsic is it to a developer to ensure that my SSH keys are not exposed, my tokens are not in the code? So the runtime ability of security tools to be constantly monitoring is becoming even more important, which goes back to, yes, I cannot tolerate my code being jeopardized and hence the risk increasing, right? So it's all intertwined.
Yeah. That's a great segue for my next question. So as AI systems become more autonomous and sophisticated, how are you thinking about governance models that maintain a high degree of confidence and enterprise alignment?
Governance is so important. I was just surprised. I was looking at the time. It's already 6 minutes. We started at 14. This is great conversation. Hopefully, you guys are benefiting. But coming back to governance, I think in this world and the current state of affairs, dynamic governance is becoming very important. And what do I mean by that? I'll go back to something I was listening to this morning on a podcast, where all of us, when we build and we compile our code, right, we pull in libraries from systems where we have these libraries being dynamically updated, improved, new features being added. And into our CI/CD pipeline, we pull in that library. This particular library, and I don't want to mention, it's a Java repo. It actually had models baked in, and once the models got downloaded, they would actually be able to control the agents on the developer's machine to expose any SSH keys, any tokens that were embedded in the code, and send it to a remote server. It's as fresh as this morning. And that code was up for 5 hours. Please go and read it. Hopefully none of you have downloaded that package. But what I mean to go back to is, if it's so dynamic, dynamic governance is important, which is, for example, dynamic red teaming. Can you not treat red teaming as a process to be done in a certain time frame, but be a continuous process of the development cycle, where you're continuously testing your code for vulnerabilities, exposure management, et cetera, and then ensuring that the entire development cycle is safe. Again, security being foundational to the entire business as an enabler.
Right, so you use the term dynamic, and I think that's really what's key here, or dynamic red teaming. I've been discussing this with my team as well. We refer to it as continuous testing. So when we think about the different models and agents that are being deployed into production, and we've tested those before they go into production, back to the question is, how do you maintain that same degree of confidence that you had in that agent when you deployed it over the life of the agent, especially if you end up with dozens or hundreds or even thousands of agents in your environment. An organization can't afford to find that it had a problem 6 months after the problem, or after a string of agents where one becomes corrupted and then all of the downstream or upstream data is in some way implicated or corrupted. So we have to think about, how are we going to maintain that high degree of confidence that what we expect in terms of the function that that agent is providing, or the output that is expected from that agent, how do we know that the output is what we expect? How do we know that we aren't seeing model drift or bias or all of the other better known issues that tend to come into this space? How do we maintain that high degree of confidence that things are operating as intended? And I think it comes back to this idea of continuous testing, and how do you do that at scale without slowing the organization down? You know, from my seat, my thinking is it's likely a platform or a service that becomes embedded into your deployment path.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, you don't deploy until you're hooked into this service that just continuously tests that agent to say, yep, it's working as correct as anticipated. And then of course when it drifts or it misbehaves in some way, whether it's malicious or something just breaks, because we know technology is capable of doing that sometimes, how do you know that that happened?
Yes.
And you're learning of that issue in more real time than months down the road where that issue may be significantly amplified or otherwise disruptive.
I think real time is, you really hit the key on that one, Jerry. And I think the mothers and fathers of security, the good old zero trust model, it has to apply for agents as well, right?
Great point.
Continuous verification, real time testing, all these fall into that dynamic governance model.
Yeah, great point, thank you. So what I'll leave you with is, think of security as a catalyst, not a constraint. It should serve as an enabler and a catalyst for innovation. And as AI accelerates, both opportunities and threats, the role of InfoSec also fundamentally shifts and pull us in earlier in the development process. Make a partner of us. We do truly want to help you and our organizations win. And the future of security is real time, to your point, not reactive. Thank you, Swapna, for joining me, and thanks to all of you for spending some time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.